We need to double down on the things we think of as mistakes and imperfections, because that is what makes us human.
You're listening to Creative Rebels, the podcast for creatives.
Welcome back, Rebels. David Speed here. Currently, as you listen to this, I'm in New York. If everything's gone to plan, hopefully, I'll be in New York. So if you're a New York-based creative and you want to connect, then drop me a DM at David Speed UK on Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, that platform's been having a rough time on this podcast recently. We've all been lamenting the terrible place that is Instagram. I was just talking to an artist recently, and she was saying how she's just about to hit 100k followers, and frustratingly, how she's like, most of those have come through satisfying tape pulls, like, you know, when you pull the masking tape off a painting, and just how unfulfilling that's been for her, because it's not really about the art. It's just about this like quick visual hook that's grabbing people in. And I totally get it. It's really frustrating. I think the way that landscape is changing currently, the landscape of social media. I saw a stat the other day that you only see 17% of your friends' posts these days. So the vast majority of what you're being shown is from strangers. I know on TikTok I don't bother to follow anyone anymore. There's really no point, because the algorithm knows what you want to see. So the following is kind of done by default. Your eyeballs let the computer know what you want to watch. And that is really sad. I was saying to this artist who was telling me her story, I was saying that I was happiest really on Instagram when I had 30,000 followers. Now I know that's still a huge number, but and maybe it was just down to the timing of when in history I had 30,000 followers. Maybe that was just a good time for social media. But I think I felt connected. I was seeing the same names commenting on my stuff over and over again, because it was being shown to them. You know, it wasn't this sort of like quest for viral and bring in all of the new eyeballs. And so the reason I bring this up is because it's definitely something that gets touched on in this episode is social media. And obviously you're listening to two artists chatting to each other who have both got large social media followings. I understand that, and if you haven't, that might be frustrating, and I still understand the need or the want to still build your social media follow account. But I would say, and again, I mean, I know I've got a lot of followers, but again, I would say it is not as important as you think. It's definitely still a metric, and there's definitely certain opportunities that I get only because I've got that number, which is sad and depressing, because I know that it should be down to the quality of the art, but it's not. It's they know that I've got the social proof because I've got that number attached to my accounts online. But really, speaking with Nishant today, who is, by the way, just one of art's great thinkers, I think. I just love the way he thinks about stuff. And I'm so aligned with so many things that he says, but his way of describing things, I think, is really beautiful. And I do urge you to listen all the way to the end of this podcast, because I think, especially as we got deeper and into the end of this podcast, that like just so much got thrown up that I think is really interesting. But we did talk about social media and the disposable junk food nature of it, and some ways similar in the episode with Seth Werkheiser, where we were talking about getting away from social media. It's again focusing on this idea of building these deeper connections with people, which I think is so important for your career. So find those people who love what you do, keep them close, and pitch to them. They're the only people that really matter. It's why I'm not posting on Instagram very much anymore. It's why I'm active on Substack, and it's why I'm doing in-person events, and it's why I'm leaving art in the street and giving things away, and it's why I painted strangers in the street, is because I wanted that connection just with one person instead of lusting after the eyeballs of a million people. I really think that narrowing down and focusing on a smaller viable audience, it actually has the effect of bringing in a bigger audience, because a crowd attracts a crowd and people want to see what is being looked at. But we really delve into this episode, and plus so much other stuff. And I'm a big fan of Nishant, and goes by the name The Sneaky Artist, and you can find he's got a huge Instagram following, he's got a big Substack following, and he just makes cool work. So the legend that is Nishant, The Sneaky Artist. Let's go.
The first thing I wanted to ask you is how did you get the name Sneaky Artist? Because I think it's a beautiful story.
Sure, David. So, this came from a place of being super self-conscious and anxious about what I was doing. I was trying to write a novel, and I kept hitting a writer's block. I had left my previous career to become a writer and to write novels and to become a political satirist and a lot of writing. Art was never in the picture. And I kept hitting this writer's block, and I tried 3, 4, 5 drafts, and I kept hitting, and I wouldn't be able to go on. So out of frustration, I picked up a sketchbook. I picked up the pen that I was writing with. I was writing with a fountain pen for my 5th draft because I thought maybe if I write by hand, somehow this time this is going to make it work. Clearly not. So I picked up a fountain pen. I picked up this book. I just went out to a cafe to run away from my desk. And while I was sitting there, I started watching the people around me. And I'd really always wanted to be able to draw. I had a stick figure webcomic and stick figures, so not very good. But I always wanted to get better at it. And the idea in me was that if I look at enough things and I draw them, maybe even if I still draw stick figures, I can put them in like a realistic looking world, like a room that looks like a room, a street that looks like a street. And that was the extent of my ambition with drawing. I started drawing just to pass the time and just to not think about the writing. What happened was that at the end of an hour, I looked at my page, and obviously it wasn't very good. But I realized that I'd had a really good time. I'd really enjoyed this 1 hour doing this thing, and I wanted to do it again. I should mention at this time, I was an immigrant in the US. I was in a new place. I was living in Chicago, and everything was new to me. And people in America are super dramatic. Everybody is in their own TV show. So I could sense that there's like big drama happening around me, and I'm curious. I want to see what these people do. I want to see more of these people doing their own individual TV show things. So I thought this would be fun. Maybe I can just go to cafes and for an hour a day and just draw what I see. And maybe I'll find some fun stories this way. And who knows, maybe I'll learn to draw a little bit. So this is what I started doing. I gave myself a 30-day target to go every day to a different part of this new city that I was completely enamored by. And the goal was just look at people and draw what you see and maybe learn to draw this way and fulfill your curiosity. But this whole business of doing this felt really strange because, I'm a grown adult who goes out to learn to draw. And I was super self-conscious about this idea of drawing badly, like making bad drawings. And what would somebody say if they saw it? What would somebody say if they peered over my shoulder and asked me what I'm doing? How would I explain myself? So my thinking was that I need to be really inconspicuous about this. I would sit in the corner seat in cafes so nobody could be behind me. I would draw quickly so that I could get out of there before anybody noticed anything. And I decided I needed to be sneaky. So the word sneaky art just comes from me trying to be sneaky in public spaces while observing people and trying to get away with the drawing. And that was the extent of what I thought about it.
I love that. It's so interesting, isn't it, that you felt like you needed to be sneaky because we have this cultural idea that the artist is the finished product, and everyone sucks when they first start. And I really don't think there's such a thing as natural talent. And I bump into, because I'm a street artist, and I bump into people in the street and they go, "Oh, you've got such a talent," and it's such an interesting conversation because I will say to them, "Well, thank you, but it's a talent I've built up over many years because when I first started, I sucked." Because when anyone starts anything for the first time, they suck, and there's this thing in their head that they won't allow me. Yeah, but no, there's something magical in you. They bestow magic upon it. That we are born with something, and obviously you and I know that there's a long process to becoming, but we're not allowed to go out and practice in public. It's like you needed to be sneaky because you were fearful of the judgment of others of this is not proper art, this is not good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of those points. Like, firstly, I think social media is responsible for this idea of thinking of the artist as a finished product, because we're all supposed to exhibit ourselves as brands. But I also think the problem is with just being an adult. Like, I think for me, the process of becoming an artist was also the process of unlearning adulthood ideas and embracing the child inside me again. That, children draw just to draw. And you'll finish a drawing, you'll rip off the page, you'll throw it behind you, and you'll start again. Like, you're not going to sit and critique it. You're not going to compare it to your friend. You're not going to compare it to your favorite artist and beat yourself up about how you didn't do as well as them. But that's because children are just enjoying the process of making art. It's fun to play with these colors and it's fun to make these lines, and that's the part that they're enjoying. But somehow in growing up, we get into this idea that it's only worth doing if the result is good, and the process doesn't matter. The result has to be quote unquote worth it. It has to be quote unquote good art. Otherwise, there's no point doing it.
There's a graffiti artist called Gary, and I mean he's much more of a fine artist now, but he came from the graffiti world. And I remember reading an interview with him many years ago, and he said that he would often not photograph the paintings that he made because it was about, and this was him painting on trains, it was painting down like the sides of railway lines, like really like dangerous situations, but he wouldn't document. And for graffiti artists, that's like the holy grail, is like when you paint on a train, it's like a coming of age type of thing. And he would not even document that because he said that it was about the experience for him. And that, I always found that a really interesting idea, that the act of making the art was the art within itself, and what was left behind was not so much the product.
That is absolutely beautiful. I respect graffiti artists a lot because, firstly, two reasons. Like, firstly, I think just this business of claiming a public space as a point of exhibition or self-expression, I think there is a good conversation to be had about how much ownership do we have over our own streets and the walls of our own cities, our neighborhoods. Secondly, the ephemerality of it. Like, it's always, at any point, it could be whitewashed, it could be cleaned out, it could be gone. So you're making art that is by its nature transient. It's not going to be there forever. And I think there's a very good philosophical underpinning to all of this, to making graffiti art, at least from these 2 points. So I really like people who think like this. And I completely respect Gary's point about, trying to lose yourself in the process. So I do something similar. I make drawings and then I leave them in public spaces for somebody to find. And I started doing that firstly as a way to give away art, but secondly also as a way to be the kind of person who can give away something they made, and just get into this sense of being able to relinquish something that you made with a lot of love and a lot of effort, and that anything I make should not be bigger than me. I should be able to sacrifice it, to renounce it, and move on to the next piece. The next piece is always better than whatever I did yesterday.
When I read about you doing that, I instantly thought, well, Nishant is a street artist, because I think that's you interacting with your environment. And although the drawing that you're making is infinitesimally smaller than the painting that I'm making, it's still being left behind by both of us for someone to discover. And I think there's a real beauty in that. And I think one of the things I love about street art is that it is free. And like you described, this is you're giving away these pieces for free. And I think so. I'm doing an event at my studio next month where I'm doing an art swap. So I've made 400 prints, and I'm going to be giving those away to people. But in order for them to have a print, they have to bring me something that they've made, and it can be anything. Like, you can bake me a cake, or make me a song and put it on a hard drive, or build something out of Lego. As long as you've used your hands to create something, that's all I'm interested in, because I want to. For me, the best art is playful, and I really want to spark that in other people, because I know a lot of people will go, well, I do want the free print. That's definitely something I want. But now how I've got to get it, I've got to go about reawakening something that I maybe haven't thought about for a long time. And I want people to go through that process of just sort of remembering there's a beautiful sort of, I suppose it goes back to, if I really want to like break it down, the sort of anti-capitalism of just that barter and exchange system that we worked on for thousands of years before money came into the picture. There's something really beautiful, and I've always noticed that people love giving their art to other people. So I'm trying to create this thing that jumpstarts that really. It's a project I'm excited about for sure.
That is really wonderful, because I think, what you're describing is also, somebody, like the word I use is, you have to give yourself permission to make the art. And for various societal, cultural reasons, we have withdrawn permission from ourselves. This business that art is the business of professional artists. Only people who are trained / skilled / that dreaded word talented have the right to make art, and everybody else is wasting their time. So this sort of way of thinking about art, it divorces a large part of society from the business of creating something, from venting their creativity, expressing their creative selves. And that is really tragic. Like, I read recently about this thing. There's a tribe in Nigeria that practices an annual festival. It's for a goddess, the earth goddess, and you have to make a temple for her. From clay, you have to make sculptures of her and other associated stories and paintings on the walls of this home that you're building for her. And the idea is that the priest of the village goes to different homes and randomly picks out people who will do it this year. And then the next year, it'll be randomly some other people. And for the whole process of creation, these people live apart from the village. They just do this thing for whatever number of days. And then when they're done, the festival begins and people come and experience it. And so the idea is that art is not the business of only skilled, so to speak, skilled people. Art is the business of a community, and everybody should express their creativity in different ways. And art should be not about necessarily, the best art is not the most technically proficient, the most skilled, he got perspective right, everything looks exactly like it should. That's not the best art. The best art is something that is honest and something that is really expressing who you are. And that is something anybody can do. Like, it's amazing how little credit we give ourselves. I tell people this in my workshops, writing and drawing are very similar to each other, but they're very different from each other in a couple of different ways. Firstly, it's enormously difficult to write like yourself, to write in your own honest words, your own honest thoughts. We keep mirroring and channeling the ideas and words of other people that we've read. So it takes a lot of practice to get your own words out. But drawing, it's almost impossibly easy. Immediately you can start drawing like yourself, and it takes, people put in years of effort for some reason to draw and paint like other people. I need my art to look like Van Gogh. I need my art to look like Hopper. I need my art to look like so and so person, and that's good art and I am not. So we spend years and years trying to not look like ourselves and look like somebody else. Whereas it's so easy to access your own creativity. And immediately, the moment you put pen to paper, brush to paper, whatever you use, you're already channeling your style and your creativity.
I find it so interesting that you were trying to write a novel. Do you think it was the pressure that you put on yourself? Because it seems to me that the sneaky art was like the opposite of writing the novel. The sneaky art was you gave yourself permission to, firstly, to suck, and secondly, to experiment, to play with and you enjoyed the process, and it was just about the process. It wasn't about the final product. Whereas the writing was very, very much about the final product.
Yeah, that's a great observation. The writing was very much very architectural, like it's a novel, so you have to plan everything. And sneaky art was just go out and see what you find and wait for inspiration to strike you. So it was very spontaneous. And therefore, I didn't have to plan anything for it. So this is certainly one aspect of it. But what I really found really profound about this difference between writing and drawing and making art in general is that writing is all about words. And, I love words, but words are very bad at meaning things sometimes. Like, it's literally the one job they have. But you can say something to somebody in the clearest words and they'll misunderstand you. This is why we have differences in political opinions so many times. Like, ideas don't communicate easily, even though words should be simple to. This is what we use to talk. Somehow we can't talk to people nowadays. I think the block I was hitting was that words are very, very well, I keep coming back to the obvious things. Words are very literal. You have to say the thing you want to say. I'd been a political humorist for a really long time at that point when I was writing this novel. I'd been making jokes, I'd been writing comics, I'd been writing scripts for television, all about political satire. And, writing comedy is, and this is one of the realizations I had, that writing comedy is almost like putting a shield in front of who you are and the audience. You just make jokes, and if you're edgy enough, they maybe don't understand who you really are at all. But writing a novel is you standing naked in front of an audience. Even if you lie about everything, you are right there. And I think at some subconscious level, I was hitting that block. I was realizing that this needs me to be honest in a way that I've never been honest. And I'll be so exposed. And I feel like maybe I wasn't ready to be that guy, to be that honest about the thoughts I wanted to share. At that time, when I was struggling with this and not really able to articulate that this is the reason I'm struggling, I think art helped me to say a lot of things without getting into this murky business of words. I'm able to be honest, but I don't have to use the words for it. Art is a way to communicate. And I guess, as a political humorist in the 2010s, living through a lot of the rise of right-wing politics, I was facing a lot of problems in being a political satirist. People are not getting jokes anymore. People don't want to appreciate humor anymore. People are angry at each other and at anybody who dares to make fun of their favorite politician of choice. So art for me became a way to say something that nobody could deny. It became a way to say something that could be so truthful that there's just no grounds for disagreement. And I was looking for it because, being a cartoonist on social media, I caught a lot of trolls, a lot of abuse, a lot of hatred for the ideas that I wanted to express. And I was really tired of it. I was really affected by it. And I was looking for something, peel away the layers, find something more truthful, peel away the layers, reach something that is universally true for all of us. And that's the brain situation in which sneaky art just came into my life. And I found myself able to say something without having to say it, and say something that is just the truth, even if it's a little truth, even if it's just something very small. It's just something that is unequivocally, it's definitely what it is. And there's no ambiguity about it. So I think I was looking for that. And that's what art gave me that writing still isn't able to give me. I feel like writing is harder and harder.
Yeah, I'm going through that myself at the moment. When obviously you spend so much time observing people, has anything come up for you in just because I see it almost as if I relate it to my experience when I'm painting in the street, it's very meditative for me, and I get into flow state, which is occasionally broken by the conversations that I have with people because there's that energy of being outside. Has anything come up for you in sort of the universal human truths that have just come through by you just observing these quiet moments and these and busy moments, just because I think that's what you capture so beautifully, is just these transient little snippets of people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the motivations for me to start doing this was that as an outsider, as an immigrant, as a stranger in North America, at that time, I felt really out of place. Like, I was trying to understand the people around me, and I was trying to see how I could fit into this new world, which I don't quite understand. So the curiosity to look at people in public spaces was also the curiosity to understand how we live lives in public spaces and how somebody can fit in to a world? How do you make a new place your home? And home can't be just the four walls of your apartment. Home also needs to be your larger community, the neighboring park, the cafe next door, and all of these spots where, we exhibit our lives, we live our lives in different ways. We express ourselves, whether it's a picnic, whether it's having coffee with a friend, or sitting somewhere in line, waiting in line at the groceries. You're still living a part of your life. And I was looking for clues about how do I live here? How do I make myself comfortable here? So I was trying to capture something that would give me these ideas. And what I observed and what I put down was about noticing these things, these little everyday things that people do, but that make me say, I order my coffee the same way. Or I would sit with my friend exactly like that at the table and, lean forward and talk to them this way. And I can see myself doing that. I can see this being part of my world. So this is also an idea of how I draw, why I draw the way I draw. Like, I draw with a lot of minimalism. I take away a lot of details from my pages. And the reason for that is, I don't want to tell you everything. I tell people I'm doing this because it's fast, but the other goal is also that I want to strip away these differences. I don't want you to know what ethnicity somebody is. I don't want you to know what language they speak. I don't want you to know all the ways that they're different from me and from you. I want you to see just the things that help you relate with them. And then I want to leave a lot of blanks because I want you to fill in the blanks. And when you see one of my tiny people drawings, I want you to think about how this person, even though you've never seen them, maybe you've never visited my part of the world and where I made that drawing, but still that person belongs also in your world. You should be able to, in a sense, recognize them because there's just enough information there for them to be a person from your world too. So there is this sense of universality that I'm looking for, even in the banal things, even in the things that are so ordinary in ordinary places on ordinary days.
And you were writing your novel with a fountain pen as like a last ditch effort to try and make something happen. And then you took that pen out and started drawing with that, but you still draw with the pen today. And it's obviously a very unforgiving instrument. Is that intentional for you to if this mark is made, then it's definite?
Absolutely intentional, yes. So as a perfectionist, so as a person suffering from perfectionism, I should say, I had gotten into this cycle of constantly erasing my lines, constantly changing what I said, what I drew. And, the problem with that is not only that you're always second guessing yourself, but you are never close to finishing things because you're always editing things. And one of the reasons to write with the fountain pen was also that I need to stop editing all the time. I need to not hit that backspace button so easily every moment. I need to write out a sentence. So that's one reason in the writing. Another reason in the writing to use a fountain pen is that I'm really good at typing. Like, I type really fast. And I think I type too fast for my own thoughts. So any sentence I would write would only be the roughest half of a first draft, and I would inevitably have to change it. But when you write by hand, and especially if you write with a fountain pen, you are imposing a physical limit to how fast you can write. The way the nib scratches the page, the way your wrist works, you can't go infinitely fast, as fast as you would type. So just the process of writing out a sentence, in your mind, you're already running through that sentence a couple of times, 3 times maybe. So the sentence that actually makes it on the page is already a third revisioned version of the sentence that initially occurred to you, which would have already been on the screen if I was typing. Like, I type too fast to be typing well. So the idea that speed and convenience don't always make the best products, and sometimes you have to respect the value of time and the value of deeper thought. So this is something that the fountain pen was bringing in me. When I started drawing, the idea was simple that if I draw with this, again, 2 reasons. Firstly, I can never erase. I can't get into perfectionism mode. I have to deal with whatever I do. If I make a mistake, the solution is not to change it. The solution is to finish it and then to turn the page and make another drawing. This is the only way out. So as a result, I made lots and lots and lots of drawings. We should talk about why mistakes are important, because I think keeping your mistakes in your work is super important. But the other reason to draw with a fountain pen is that the way that you get feedback from what you use. So when you touch your brush or pen or pencil of choice onto a page or canvas or a wall, whatever you want to work with, the sense of touch and the sense of feedback that your muscles receive, that your brain then computes, and then it tells you, okay, move so much in this direction. This whole feedback mechanism with your neurons and your muscles, your neuromuscular system and your brain working together, this is an important part of how you draw your lines. So there isn't any single right tool for people to use when they draw or make art. You have to find the feedback mechanism that gives you the most joy. Again, taking joy from the process of making. For me, the fountain pen on the paper, with that amount of friction that it gives me, a little bit of push when I try to push up, a little bit easier when I try to pull down, and how rich the ink looks and how it feels on the page, all of that brings me a lot of joy. This is what I enjoy about using a fountain pen, the physical act of using it. So the process of drawing is filled with enjoying this process of making lines and shapes with it. And this is another reason why the fountain pen is super important for me to use. I love to use it. I am expanding my toolkit. I am growing as an artist, but there is a lot of comfort I take from the unforgiving fountain pen.
I love that. And it's funny because one of the reasons I love spray paint is because it's so forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Every color covers every other color, and I don't leave my mistakes, and I make sure I clean everything up. So yeah, it's interesting how different people operate, but yeah. So could you describe the path of going from this is just very much a hobby and an escapism whilst you're working on the novel to how does this end up becoming your full-time gig?
Yeah, so I had been writing stories about Indian politics and Indian culture for the longest time, making comics about Bollywood and about Indian politics. And at that same time, I was every year living further and further away from India, from the place where my stories came from and my ideas came from, further away from my audience and the people who were growing up and living there. In a sense, I had tapped out of the culture. I was just watching it from afar. And that's not very honest. That's not a very real view. So I was feeling this disconnect of talking about something that I was not experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Secondly, I realized that I am living in this space which I am not interacting with in my writing. My story, the novel that I was writing, was about India. All the jokes and ideas and comics in my head were about India, but I was living in a different part of the world. So I had no creative interaction or engagement with the part of the world that I was living in. As I started drawing, this became my engagement with the environment that I was physically in, looking at the cafes that I was visiting, looking at the people actually around me, telling stories in whatever way a drawing can tell a story. And I discovered that finally I'm talking to and about the people around me. This is one reason. The second reason is it's so much easier to get somebody to look at your drawing than to get somebody to read something you wrote, because it takes like a split second for them to either like you or not like your work as an artist. But it takes a real commitment, an honest, real commitment for somebody to even start reading your work. So I found that if I'm going to talk about my work as a creative person, it's easier for me to talk about the art because it's easier for me to share the art and it's easier for me to get a reaction to the art than it is for any amount of writing. Even the best things I've written, how do I get you to commit 15 minutes to read? It's really difficult. So I started leaning towards the art as I found it easier to explain. I found it fun to do. And I found that I was finally speaking to the people around me. If I was going to talk to somebody in my world about what I do, it was more honest and it was cleaner to show them a drawing I was making of that world than to talk about the writing I was doing of another world, that is my home country in India and the politics there, and expecting them to understand that was much more difficult. So I found that, okay, people are liking the art and people are enjoying the art, and it's much easier to get more and more people to look at the art. So maybe for a while, until I figure out this writing thing, I can just lean on the art a little bit more. I can spend more time drawing and seeing where that takes me, because this is fun. I'm enjoying doing it and I'm enjoying learning more about it. And every day that I do it, I'm doing something I didn't do yesterday. So I'm, climbing that's ladder of skills very fast. And that's a lot of fun. To get better at things is a lot of fun. So I just decided that, okay, for a little while, let's lean into this and see where this takes me and let the writing be on the back burner and figure itself out. So I did this, and it just turned out that the art was too much fun. And I didn't want to write for the longest time. I just found that I'm able to tell stories through this. I'm able to communicate something very deep through this. This is when I realized that art is helping me to say things without the cumbersome usage of words. Maybe this is something amazing, and maybe I should do this a little more and not think about the writing so much. So instead of describing myself as a writer slash cartoonist, it took a few years, but I started saying I'm an artist slash writer. And that's how it's been since then.
It's so funny then that the way that I came to discover you was through your writing. And I read one of your posts on Substack, and I was like, who is this person? Because the article really hit me. So obviously you've come back to the writing, but just to linger a little bit longer on that transition, for someone who's listening to this, I know someone is listening and they're saying, but I draw every day and I don't know what my next step is. How do I get people to look at my drawings?
Yeah. So firstly, your art is your journey, and you have to really be on the journey. It's like you're in this map and there's no directions and everything is too dark. So the trouble that comes with a lot of people, and this was my situation too, is we think that there is a straight line for us to follow. There is a best path for us to take. And then we will hit this point where suddenly we will be artists. We will have reached the climax of our journey, and then we have a style, and then everybody loves us. But it's not that straight line. Art is this journey you take in which you go in all kinds of different directions. And the choice of direction is entirely up to you. The way it's worked for me, the way I suggest it work for other people, is that you need to tap into your curiosity. And your curiosity can take all these different shapes. It can take all these different styles, but you need to be infinitely curious. And this is what is part of giving permission to yourself. You have to allow yourself to be curious and not throw away or discount your curiosity. Like, what do I know? I'm not trained. What, I don't know any better. I should just draw what these people are drawing. I should just draw like this person whose art I like. I should just do what these people are doing, and then I will find something. Instead of that, you need to have the courage, and you need to step out of your own anxiety bubble and give space to your curiosity to express itself. For me, in that time, in that space, the curiosity was the people around me. I am curious about people. I love people watching, and I needed an excuse to do that. So I gave free rein to my curiosity for the people around me. I would draw the city, but I would always draw the people first. I didn't want to draw just a park. I didn't want to draw just the incredible skyline of Chicago. I wanted to draw the people as the subjects and the skyline as the backdrop to their life. So finding out what you're curious about is also just clues you get. I find this interesting. When I'm walking down the street, I see something and it's like, oh, this is interesting. I don't know why. I don't know exactly what shape it'll take, but something has just triggered in my brain, and I need to chase that feeling. Sometimes it's as simple as that. For me, it's things that I see outside in my world. For other people I know, it's sometimes just colors. A color triggers a feeling and they want to chase that feeling. Their relationship with art is the relationships of different colors with each other or different shapes with each other. More abstract than me. For me, it's what I'm seeing and how people are interacting. It's more ground based. It's more based in the human world. So I think chasing curiosity is the most important thing. Secondly, again, social media, it tells us that we need to be these finished products. So the moment you get good at something, you just double down on it and you never change. You never move anywhere else. You just walk in a straight line with that niche that you've picked up. And I think that's actually quite harmful. I don't think we are meant to be finished products. art is not a destination, art is a journey. And to take this journey, you have to be willing to change and evolve and grow. You have to enjoy sucking. You have to embrace your mistakes. You have to enjoy getting better at things, which means initially being bad at things. So this joy, this feeling, this curiosity is inside all of us. It just needs us to give ourselves permission. Sometimes we take permission from looking at the journeys and listening to the words of other people, but permission is needed in order to access it. And find the tool you enjoy, find the paper that you are not afraid of, and just make things and see what ideas that gives you. Tap into your ideas. Consume good art, watch good art, let it give you inspiration, let it give you ideas, move in different directions, and never ever narrow down. Always just move in different. It's so beautiful. This whole terrain of art, and you get to walk everywhere, and instead you choose to walk in a straight line towards some kind of horizon. It's such a silly way to live a life. Life is about exploring, art is about exploring. So, if you make art every day, I think that's amazing. Firstly, I think it's a great commitment to your creativity and your self expression. But if you're dissatisfied, maybe I would suggest, is it giving joy to you? Art should always be joyous. Even when you suck, it should be fun. Is it allowing you to vent your curiosity? Is it allowing you to tap into your curiosity? Art should always satisfy that feeling inside you. And if it does those things, then I think you are always moving somewhere. And again, it's not a straight line. You're always moving. And that movement is a good thing.
I 100% agree with you. For my own life, my career really took off when I just followed my curiosity around one color. I just got really obsessed with bright, very bright neon pink.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would explore it for 6 months, and here we are 5 years later, and I still
I can see neon pink all around you as well.
Yeah, it's just I'm obsessed with it. I am obsessed with it, and I was really excited by neon, so I thought I'd maybe then try to paint with neon blue or neon green afterwards.
Right.
But I'm still using pink because I'm still excited by it. I still learn new things about it. But when it doesn't serve me anymore, I will move on, and I have to move on because I don't want to be trapped by something forever. I want to enjoy it and experience it while it's exciting to me. And as soon as it doesn't become exciting anymore, I will find something else.
Yeah. And I find that fascinating. Like, as somebody who doesn't really understand color very well, I think it's amazing that some people are moved by colors, and that just the dynamics of how it works.
I wanted to talk to you about writing because, like I said, that's how I found you. And when I subscribed to your Substack, the welcome email that I got, it really described what you spoke about earlier in that it's easier to build an audience with a visual picture because it'll tell a story really quickly, but it's harder to get people to sit with you for that longer time and read words that you've written. But then, as you say in your welcome letter on Substack, you're like, but that's what I want to do because I don't want to hit the algorithms to just try and get as many eyeballs on my work as possible. What I want to do is sit with you for a little bit longer, and maybe it's a smaller audience, but I want to go on it like a deeper journey with people. So
Yeah.
do you tell me about like your sort of experience with writing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the internet reasons for why the writing fell away from me was also that the internet generally shifted towards images and then later to videos. So, Blogspot used to be a thing and blogging used to be a thing. And then Facebook came around, and for a while, Facebook was very supportive of writing as well. For a while, Facebook didn't squash outside links. They allowed you to write on Facebook too. And, I got a lot of audience for my writing that way. And then things started moving towards images, and you found that people are not writing so much anymore because there's no audience for it, and everybody just wants images and they want to hit that fresh new like button. And then the like button became this heart button and all the other various buttons, and everybody's playing with those. So as internet culture moved away from the written word, I felt compelled to also move away a little bit from it. So I started thinking about whether I need to be more, so I started drawing comics instead of writing political humor as a short story or as a script. I started drawing comics and have just a few words, but mainly images. the writing came back to me when I realized that this whole image system is now an infinite scrolling machine. It's an infinite feed in which you get, if you're lucky, 1 second from somebody who loves your work. If you're lucky, you reach them. And if you're lucky, they give you a whole 1 second. So what am I doing here? I'm just playing to the tunes of these algorithms, and I'm jumping on their trends, and I'm performing how they want me to share my work. I'm going to talk about the things they want me to talk about because that will get me an audience, and everything else will be disincentivized. It's going to be downranked, downgraded in the algorithm, so it won't reach as many people. Very subtly, this whole system trains you to express yourself a certain way. It takes away your freedom as a creative person. So for me, what I was lucky to find during the pandemic, the notion, the idea of newsletters, and it gave me a chance to write again. But even aside from the words, it gave me a space to share my art again, but outside of this fixed format of social media. So the way it works, and in the welcome email, that's what I described, that I don't want to steal 1 second of your attention while you're scrolling. People go on Instagram in the middle of their workday in order to scroll. Just keep doing this thing with your fingers. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you to stop. And I'm trying to get you to look at my image. And I want you to also read my caption. And I want you to also make a comment. And that is asking a lot because you just came here to scroll. You have a few minutes. Why am I trying to make you do all of these things? But the same person who does this on Instagram is not, it's not that they don't like art or they don't care about what somebody did. It's just that they behave this way on Instagram, on social media, because this is the mechanics of social media. This is how this thing wants them. There is a legion of engineers who have spent so much hours and so many lines of code to make this happen. And I'm trying to stop it from happening alone by myself. So it's a losing battle. So a newsletter is this solution for me. I send it once a week. The whole week, I think about what I'm going to say. So I don't just say things on the spur of the moment, but I think about my words and I work my words over and over in my mind, on the page, on the screen. And then they finally reach your inbox. They reach your inbox and they sit there chronological order. They don't jump out at you. They don't grab your attention. You don't have to read it now, or it's gone forever, which is the case with Instagram. If you see my post and you didn't like it, you're never ever going to see it again. It's gone forever. Whatever frame of mind you were in, if you didn't enjoy it in that moment, you're never going to see it again. But in a newsletter, it's going to sit in your inbox until you decide to hit open, until you decide, okay, I've got a couple of minutes to give this guy now. Maybe the day you got it, maybe you wait until the weekend. Your freedom, your choice. My freedom to send it when I want, how I want. Your freedom to read it when you want, for as long as you want. This is nice, mutually consensual. It's freedom on both ends. We are both doing what we want, how we want. And it just felt so much more wholesome to me. So it allowed me to respect my own writing again, because I know that I'm not clamoring for attention. I'm not trying to steal somebody's moments of attention, but they are giving me time when they want. And so they are reading me in a completely different headspace. So betting on the newsletter was betting on this idea that maybe I can get 5 minutes once a week, and the quality of that will trump getting 0.1 second from 1,000 more people on Instagram. And that's how it's been. Like, I have a significantly larger audience on Instagram because that's how Instagram works. But the audience on my newsletter is my real, fulfilling, my primary audience, the people who respond to what I do, the people whose lives are, I know, genuinely affected. This exchange happens between us. It's not just me throwing my art into the social media void, but here I'm hearing back from people. They respond to the emails, they comment on the posts. We talk to each other, we know each other, we refer to previous posts. So there's a relationship that's building. And this is a much more wholesome and a much more fruitful and a much more enjoyable space for me to be in.
I love that. And it's my number one tip to whenever I meet a young artist, I'm always like, have you got a mailing list? I think it's the most important, like, direct line to the people who actually give a shit. Social media is a totally separate skill. But if you don't have those skills or can't be bothered with those skills, writing for the people that care about you is so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you make for the people that are already there, ironically, that brings in more people because a crowd draws a crowd, and everyone's like, well, what are they? And people share. So if something touches them, it's like, I've sent your article on AI to like 6 different people. It's like, because it touched me, and that was a flag of yours that I discovered completely by accident, probably through someone reposting it on Substack. I would imagine that's probably how I found it. So I found your article. I'm now totally invested in your world. I'm subscribed to your newsletter. I'm having this conversation with you, and I've sent your work to more people who are then going to discover you. And of those 6, maybe 2 of them have now subscribed to your newsletter as well. It's like, that's the process.
Yeah. You are not seeing my ideas in social media, because social media is your mind gets into content mode. I'm here to quickly eat this junk food and then forget about it. I got my dopamine and it's bad for me, but whatever, I'm done. But when you're reading it as an email, when you're reading it as a post, as a newsletter post, you're in a different frame of mind. So you're treating it very differently. You're treating the ideas with seriousness because you're treating them as something more serious than just content. The only pitch the leaders of Instagram have for you is you can do this and grow your audience. Nobody ever talks about what do you do with your audience? How do you speak to people who love your work and have hit that follow button maybe months ago, maybe yesterday, but what is the deal they get? I think it's almost reliable to say that if you follow me, you are less likely to see my work than if you didn't follow me and waited for the algorithm to throw it at you. So here's how I think about the internet. And this is how I think any creative person, whether you're an artist or a writer, should. I think of the internet as 2 kinds of places. One is a place where you cast a net, and that is social media. This is where you go and you try to find people who might care about your work. You're not here to share your finished product. It's not about the time lapse of your art piece. It's not even about the art piece at the end. It's about vibes. It's just about, maybe it's a B-roll of you spray painting on a wall or on a piece of canvas, and then you saying something that makes them feel good in that moment. Just good content. Nothing to do with skill level, nothing to do with the value of the art, nothing to do with how beautiful or incredible the product, the art actually is by itself. It's just the vibes that you communicate. You cast your net, you catch people's attention. You don't have them, you just catch their attention, because that attention is fleeting. My job is, once I've caught their attention, to as quickly as possible send them to a place where I have them. And that is your newsletter. Maybe that is also your YouTube channel. I'm not sure how well YouTube works for that, but certainly a newsletter and a mailing list is that thing. So this is how I think of my job. My job is to cast a net and then send these people as quickly as I can to the place where we can actually sit down and talk to each other. And slowly, people trickle towards this newsletter, and then they become readers. So I think everybody should think about these 2 spaces as being different kinds of spaces and not mix them up. Don't use your newsletter as a content engine. Don't use social media as a deep engagement platform.
So on that note of content, I found it really interesting. I've mentioned it a bunch of times through this interview about the piece that you wrote on AI. When I read your piece, I think it was a great way of taking everything that I've been thinking and feeling and putting it all down in one place. So thank you for that. It was nice to read that I'm not the only one who feels sort of quite hopeless about this AI thing. I think the most difficult thing for me is the way that the general public, the sort of the people that are using and getting enjoyment out of creating this stuff, is that they see it as very harmless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually quite harmful.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the sort of that easy breezy of, why are you making such a big deal of it? It's only a bit of fun. I just created a fun image. Like, what's your problem? What do you say to those people?
We've touched on a lot of those points already. Firstly, this societal feeling that art is best left to professionals. So the idea that you have already divorced yourself from the creation process so much that you think your only indulgence in art can be through this sort of technique, this sort of image generation. You are denying yourself the joy of being creative and being curious and expressing those things through the art you make, because you're obsessed with art only being the finished product, not the journey. So the real crime of artificial intelligence and image generation to me is not what it does, but what it takes away from all of us. It takes away the process from the human. It takes away this joy of putting something, thinking of something, trying it, not working, figuring it out, having fun with it. And it gets you into this mindset that the only thing that matters is the end result. If I can get that end result, however I get it, that's what matters, which is how these people who put the prompts in can even have the audacity to call themselves artists, because they think that it's only about the end result. It's not about the process, is irrelevant, and they don't need to be part of it beyond. Again, it's such a sad thing putting words into art. Like the reason I love making art so much is that it's not about words, it's this conversation. When I'm seeing my world and I'm interpreting it, I'm looking at lines and I'm looking at shapes and I'm trying to put it down with the tools I use. There are no words coming into this business. It's this beautiful sensory capture and expression without any words. And now you are reducing it to a prompt. You're reducing it to words, to images, to images, to words. And it's completely taking you out of this beautiful thing that only humans do. One of the things that I talk about is that art is such deeply human business. It is something that we do. To divorce yourself from it is to become less human. And I think this is a very key part of what AI companies want you to believe. They want you to be less human because they really, really want you to be a content consumption machine for them. Our eyeballs bring a lot of revenue and they want 24/7 more and more revenue. And in order to do that, they need to create a lot of content very quickly. AI helps with that. And in order to do that, they need to get us to stop tuning out of their thing. We need to stop making the art. We need to just be consuming it. And that's what they make us with, getting us addicted to these social media feeds. So I think, this whole, like, making it easy for people is how a lot of evil, it's a big word to use, but I think this is what it is, and I want to be honest. This is how great evil normalizes itself, by making you complicit. How do you protest against it when you've used those tools already? How do you protest against somebody who is very harmful to the world if they are very good for your bank balance? If you buy crypto stock in one billionaire who pumps it up all the time, how would you feel about them going to jail for other crimes, even if it's like sexual assault or really terrible things that they did? You suddenly don't want them to go to jail because your success is tied to them. And I think this is the complicity that I'm sort of thinking about as well. If your only means of expressing your creativity is tied to a mediator like OpenAI or any of these companies, you are suddenly beholden to them for something that you don't need to be beholden to anybody for. And that is how they make power. That is how they gain control over society. Facebook is already controlling the means of distribution. Anybody, Meta, I should say, not Facebook, anybody who wants to put their art out there has to go through Meta platforms. There is no other way to reach your audience when you're just starting out from nothing. So they control the means of access and distribution to your audience. And with AI, they want to control the means of production as well. Everything that you want to make has to pass through us. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make it. This is true evil. This is absolutely, really, really harmful to all of us. And making it easy is just how junk food is, right? Like, yeah, junk food is very easy to eat. It's really tasty to eat French fries all day. But imagine if McDonald's started saying that we are actually healthy food and how dare you not call us healthy food? We're reaching that point when people insist on calling it art and it's not art. One of the things I wrote in my post that I think about a lot, which I'm enjoying that play of words that I did, is that anything, and you also just said that actually, anything that can be cheaply produced anywhere in the world by anybody instantaneously is by definition worth nothing. How can it be art if anybody can do it like this? The definition of for something to be art is that it has to be a summit that you climb, is that it has to take effort, is that it has to be something that impresses people because it is something they cannot do. If anybody can do this just as easily, it is never going to be worth anything. So this is my main reason why I think none of this stuff is art. All of this stuff is content, because that is the thing that is easy to do, cheaply made, cheaply consumed, and then forgotten. Nobody's looking at their Studio Ghibli filters anymore. Nobody's looking at those photos that they made. They just had fun with it for a week, and they completely secreted some beautiful art styles, and now they're done. And now they're going to consume something else. And that's how content creation works. 3 days and it's gone.
Yeah, it was fuel, and it all got consumed up and spat out, and now it's completely gone. Now it's been flushed down the toilet. Yeah. Just to end this on a positive note, I do think that the AI is actually going to present us with a really beautiful sort of, we are the alternative. We are so far away from what the machine does, even though it's trained to try and copy every single little thing that we do. I've really not posted much on social media for the past at least year now, because there's so many fake murals that I'm seeing for just made for engagement. And I can tell that it's not been hand painted, but Joe Public, they think it's this amazing mural. My pieces are real, and it might not be on social media, but it exists in the real world, and people are interacting with it and photographing it, and it's living a totally different life. So I think that we should be fired up and excited by this new opportunity of making real stuff in the real world. Like you do your open studios, and you're leaving art in real spaces for people to come and find. I think people are going to be so much more excited, because there will be an inevitable boredom of just this shit that's being churned out by these machines, that we are the beautiful alternative.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. Like, this is a quote from a friend of mine who's a stand-up comic, and he said, "The worst time to be an artist is the best time to be an artist."
Yes, I read that.
We
Incredible.
need to be more and more human. We need to double down on our humanity, which means, and circling back to something we said at the start and why I use a fountain pen too, we need to double down on the things we think of as mistakes and imperfections, because that is what makes us human, and that is what gives our art personality. That is what gives its unique character. The things that only I would do, the little idiosyncrasies of my style, the things that are perfectly human about me. So for me, the last couple of years, even before AI with the NFT craze, the whole idea has been that I want to double down on my humanity, and I want to connect with more real humans. And I want to think less about this artificial world, which is just built around content, in which I have to have a presence in order to exist, but that I should not bank upon, that I should not put all my chips on, and that I should not start tacitly accepting as the real thing. It is not the real thing. The real thing is the person who has looked at my art, and people have gotten in touch with me and said how much it changes their lives, how much it affects them. It doesn't have to be in the thousands. If you can really change a few people's lives in some little way, like even having a tiny drawing in their world on their mantelpiece, I think that is real profound difference to make. And any artist would be proud to be able to do that. And I am so happy being a human artist today. I find that in the clients who come to me, people who want me because I am me. I find that in the way that I pitch myself. I don't do things that are in other people's styles. I don't do things that don't give me joy. I am here to be myself in the most intense way that I can. And all of that is regaining value. The value of, in the times of AI, the value of verifiably human things is only going to go up. So our value is in who we are, and we need to not second guess that.
Nishant, I love you. I love the way you think. This has been incredible. Thank you so much. Quickly, let the listeners know where they can find you online.
Yeah, David, thank you so much for having me. I love to write my newsletter. You can find it as the Sneaky Art Post. That's sneakyart.substack.com. And I find this is the best way for me to share my work, to talk about what I do, and to talk about just this business of being an artist. And I'd love to do that with all of your listeners too.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you know someone who would benefit from listening to this episode? If you do, share it with them. This podcast literally wouldn't exist if it weren't for the paid subscribers over at creativerebels.substack.com and for the team at Joy Collective.